Hi, this is Donna James with the Cerner Corporation. We're going to take a few minutes to demonstrate to you the blood transfusion workflow utilizing the Bridge Medical application. Along with showing the workflow, we're going to show the design decisions that have been made thus far. I will point those out as we go along the workflow. I have already signed into Bridge as an RN, so I'm going to scan the patient's wristband, and then I'm going to click Start Transfusion. At that point, I will be taken to the pre-checks page. You have your roadmap here to tell you where you are on each page. So with the pre-checks, this is the first level of designs that have been reviewed and validated as okay for build, and I'm going to document those items. You'll notice that some of these are check boxes and some of these are drop downs. The drop downs have already been also been designed. In addition to the drop downs, you'll notice that there are some things that have an asterisk in front of them. Those are indicators that these are required documentation elements before you can proceed to the next screen. These are also design decisions of what should be required fields. The last two are not required, so I'm not going to document those at this moment. I'm going to click continue. I'm taken to the cross-match recipient tag. Some clients also call it the component tag. I'm going to scan that barcode. The 4 fields have populated with the information embedded into that barcode, and I will click continue. If there also, let me point out, if there is a difference or a mismatch between the MRN here and the MRN in the banner bar, it will result in a hard stop. If the name here does not match the name in the banner bar, it is also a hard stop. I'm going to click continue. And also before I click continue, let me identify that this patient's blood type is O positive. I'm going to continue, and now I'm going to scan the actual unit of blood or the donor blood here, as you can see on the roadmap, starting with the unit number. In the blood product, expiration date, and the donor blood type. I'm advanced to the co-signature screen, as you can see on the roadmap. If I am the nurse that has starting the transfusion process and signed in as the nurse, I cannot co-sign as myself. I would have to have another nurse to co-sign for me. I can now document my vital signs. It was decided upon in the design sessions that Fahrenheit be first. These are the temperature sites that were designed. If you are keyboard savvy, you can tab down from one field to the next, and you can use your up and down arrows to move through the drop-down list. For the sake of this demo, because we're demonstrating what the design decisions were, these are the list of the design decisions for the heart rate site. And click continue. Now I'm at the start statement screen. This is the start statement that was reviewed and designed and agreed upon. This can always be changed if after you have viewed this workflow, you have discussions and make a decision to change the start statement. I will be showing you within the DCW how to do that. So I'm going to click start. And now I'm taken back to my home screen. Well, now you see a date and time under the start button. You also see a date and time under the record vitals. It is 15 minutes from the current date and time that you see here in the bottom right-hand corner. It says 3:17, it says 3:32. 15 minutes was the decision made for the next vital sign due date to receive this notification. Now let's say you have your patient and they pull their IV out and you need to put that transfusion on hold. You will click hold transfusion. You will then scan the unit number, followed by the blood product. And now you're at the hold screen where you would document the date and time that you're starting the hold, along with your hold reasons. These have been the ones that have been designed for the possible hold reasons. I'm going to select lost IV access, and I will click continue. So let's say I have now started a new IV and I'm ready to resume the transfusion. I will click the hold transfusion button again, scan the unit number and the blood product from the unit itself, and then I will select this end hold date time, and I will select the current date. It will default to the current time. You could change that time as long as it does not precede the start hold time or the actual start transfusion date and time. So I'm going to click continue, and I have released the hold. There is no longer a date and time listed under the hold button. So let's say this transfusion has been infusing into the patient for 3.5 hours, and there's no more blood in the blood product, and you want to end that transfusion. You will then click on End Transfusion, scan the unit number, followed by the blood product. You will also enter the number of milliliters that was transfused. This was a decision to turn this on so that the documentation of the milliliters can be captured. The result of the milliliters can be interfaced over and contribute to your INO totals. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to select yes for a transfusion reaction and click continue. Because I select the yes, the system now is going to require that I document what were the signs and symptoms. These signs and symptoms are the ones that have been reviewed through design session and agreed upon as to be included. You also have available to you an other C comment that when you click on it, you can then enter in the free text any additional transfusion items that you need to if they are not listed in the list here. I will click continue. And next screen you will be advanced to is the reaction instruction screen. This is only read-only instructions for the nurse to follow through to make sure all of the steps have been carried out in case of a reaction. The reaction instructions were reviewed and agreed upon as designed. Once the nurse has followed everything that's listed here, you can click continue, and then you can proceed to document your end transfusion vitals. If you do a 1-degree change in the vitals, in the temperature, it will show the delta sign that shows the 1-degree change. Then you would document your temperature as you did before, heart rate site, and then once you've documented those items, you can click continue. And now you're here at the end transfusion checks, which are really the end transfusion reaction checks. These were the ones that were reviewed and agreed upon in our design session. Everything here has been tagged as required as per the design session, except the last two. Again, you have a combination of check boxes and drop down. The drop down items listed here are what was reviewed and agreed upon. I'm going to click continue because this is not required. If I had not documented a required item, it would not allow me to continue. I'm taken back to the home screen where you'll notice that there's no longer a date and time under your Start Transfusion button, which means that unit of blood has been transfused. If there is a time where you want to go back and review that particular transfusion, you can click Browse Transfusion History. You can see the start and end date of the transfusion, the unit number and the blood product, as well as the volume that was documented, and the yes as far as a reaction. If you want to drill down even further, you will click on the eye icon. You have several tabs listed here to see additional information. This is the general information regarding that transfusion, the reactions that were documented, any vital signs captured around that transfusion, and where in the transfusion it was captured, any checks that were documented, as well as any holds. Now I will click the back hyperlink to take me back to the home screen. Now the next thing I'm going to demonstrate is the multi-unit functionality. These are in scenarios where a patient may be going to the OR. This multi-unit where you can then add, basically reserve the units for a particular patient, can be done by the nurse within the OR space, or it can be done by blood bank before the patient arrives in the OR. So let's say, for instance, I have a patient that does not have a cross-match tag on a unit of blood, but I want to reserve that unit. I would select for no for recipient tag present and begin scanning the unit number, blood product, expiration date, and the blood type. I would document the co-signature, click continue. What it will do is generate a row at the bottom. So this is one unit that has been reserved for this patient. So let's say I'm reserving 2 units. I'm going to take a second unit, and I'm going to reserve that second unit. This particular one, let's say that I also do not have a cross-match tag. I will select no and scan the unit number, blood product, expiration date, and the donor blood type. Again, I can have my co-signature by another RN and click continue. Now I have 2 units that are reserved for this patient. So when the patient now arrives in the OR and there are units of blood in a cooler, if the procedure, the nature of procedure requires that a transfusion must be started, the first thing that that nurse will do is go to this multi-unit page and scan. So let's go out, and I'm going to select unit. So I'm now in the OR space. I'm the nurse that's caring for the patient during the procedure. It's now requested by a physician that a unit be started. I can go into this multi-unit transfusion, see the units that were reserved for this patient, scan the unit number of the first unit. It's going to generate a message that asks me, do you want to verify the blood product? I can say yes. Once I have verified that blood product, that becomes an active blood product that is no longer reserved and is now infusing for this patient. When I'm ready to start it, I can click start, and now it's infusing for that patient. So let's say you got the one unit hanging and the physician asks that another unit be started. You can scan that unit number. It'll give you the same message to ask you, are you wanting to verify that blood product? You can select yes. And then you can click the start. So now I have 2 units that have both been started for this patient. The procedure can go as normal as long as there are no issues that you need to put that unit on hold. You can continue the transfusion as needed. Whenever the procedure is done, the patient can be transferred to another unit that has bridge with those 2 blood products infusing. When the patient is received on the unit, anytime during that stay on that unit, if a nurse is ready to end the unit, she can do so by just clicking the end transfusion, similar to what you did before. And you can scan the unit number and the blood product, document how much infused in, and select no for any transfusion reaction, and click continue. When it's an hour or so later and my second unit is still hanging and is ready to be discontinued, I can then, after I enter the vital signs for that first unit, okay, so it takes me back to the home screen. And whenever I'm ready to end that second unit, let's say it's an hour later and that second unit that was hanging is done, you'll follow the same steps. Click in, scan the product number, the blood type, enter how many milliliters, no for a transfusion reaction. Click continue. Document your vitals. If you're keyboard savvy, you can tab from one field to the next. And click continue. So now you have 2 units that have completed. Well, you have 3, the one that happened before the procedure, the 2 that were transfused after the procedure. So if you want to go into your browse transfusion history, you can see that information here. And again, you have access to the drill down. Now let's say one of those units started to exhibit signs of a post-transfusion reaction. You've already documented no, but this no becomes a hyperlink. You'll notice that it's not hyperlinked for the one that you had a transfusion reaction previously. But this no is a hyperlink, which means I can click on that, document my signs and symptoms of reaction. Click continue. I can follow the instructions for reaction, enter the vital signs, If I want to document the O2 saturation, I can, even though it's not required, I still can if I need to. You have your high and low indicators and critical indicators. Click continue. Document my post-transfusion reaction. Everything is required except for these last 2 items here. Click continue. And now I'm taken back to the transfusion history. That no has now been updated to a yes. Click my back hyperlink to take me back to the home screen. Now the final workflow is one in which you want to do a rapid start, which means you have units that need to be transfused quickly into the patient, and you may or may not have a cross-match tag. With it being a rapid start, the system does not require a cross-match tag scan. Instead, you're only scanning the units of blood and hanging them back to back. So I'm gonna scan my first unit. It tells me that this does not match the patient's historical blood type of O positive because the blood type that I'm trying to scan in is O negative. But because it is a soft stop, it allows me to continue. I can then document the RN that says that this transfusion is accurately recorded. Click continue. Again, if you don't have someone available to co-sign, it was a hyperlink that I wasn't able to show you where you can go ahead and bypass that. So I'm going to click and start that unit of blood. And then it goes into the next unit that I need to scan and hang. Unit number, blood type, expiration date, and a blood type. Here's another one that's an O negative. I get a message that this blood type does not match the patient's historical blood type of O positive. Do you want to continue? Click yes. Based on the substitution chart, there will be some blood product types of donor blood types that won't match, that will result in a hard stop. Those are just an alert to let you know that they were not the same blood type as the patient, which is O positive up here. Here we go again where we're at the co-signature screen. I mentioned before there is the ability to bypass. If you don't have a nurse around that you can get to co-sign, you can click here, which allow you to continue without co-signature. And then you will click start, and you've gotten 2 units up. So you will continue this cycle back to back to back until all of your units are up and hanging. At that point, you're on the maintenance phase of both of those blood products. When you go into your browse transfusion history, you'll notice anything in red are those transfusions that have yet to end. Everything else are previously started and ended transfusion. You will then document your end transfusion just like you would in the previous examples of the workflow and bridge. So I'm going to end these 2. Scan the blood product, the unit type, the blood product, enter the number of milliliters per that were infused in the patient, no for a transfusion reaction, click continue, and do an end vital sign. Okay, and now I'm going to end the final unit. Now all of my transfusions have been up. They have totally completed and ended. All of the documentation regarding the transfusions are always available in your browse transfusion history for all of the units that were infused. You also have available to you all of the recorded vital signs in the browse vital signs history. It will tell you where in the transfusion workflow that vital sign was captured and the dates and times it was captured. You also have available to you to look at your reaction information. If you want to just go back and refer to what the signs and symptoms were of a reaction, and if you want to go back and you want to read what the reaction instructions are, you always have that available to you as a read only. So this concludes the transfusion reaction workflow, which incorporates the design decisions that were made during our design session several weeks back. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via a meeting or an email. Also, what I want to highlight to you is that you have available to you in your project portal the DCWs for transfusions. Everything with a blue tab is an indicator of what has been built. Remember how I highlighted that the oxygen saturation was the only one that wasn't required? Here we have what the vital signs are, and the ones that are not required was the oxygen saturation. So any tab that's in blue is a tab that has been reviewed and built. If there ever is a desire to change anything on the DCW, the only thing that we ask is, for instance, let me go to one of the checks or something. Let me go to a tab, the back of substitution. Let's see. Let's look at heart rate sites, for instance. If there is ever a decision that needs to be made where you want to delete one of these from the drop down, we ask that you highlight it in red. And we will also ask that you change the color of the tab to yellow. Yellow is an indicator to me that there was a modification that occurred to that row. Now I'm going to change it back to blue and change the other one back to blue as well. So if you want to modify any of these items, we want you to change that row to yellow. But in addition to changing it to yellow, what I would like for you to do is right-click on that cell and enter a comment of what your change is, so that when I go back in and review it, I can go into your read your comments. I also ask and request that you put the date and the time, not the time, but the date that you made that change request. What will happen is when I see that indicator that is yellow, and I also want you to change the color of the tab to yellow. When I see the indicator of the yellow, I will make that change. Once I've made the change, I will then go back and I will change the color back to blue, which is an indicator to you that the changes you request have been complete. This summarizes the workflow for the bridge transfusion, for the blood transfusion utilizing the bridge application. Again, if you have any questions, we can set up a call to have a meeting, or you can email me at djames2@cerner.com. Thank you.